So on your note sheet, it says finding the area of rectangles. The first part of your note sheet, it says, what is area? Now, we talked briefly in our opener today about what area is. It's where you're taking the outside numbers and you're multiplying together to find the area or the amount of space in a dimension. So right here is what you're going to write down. Area is the amount of space that a two-dimensional with the width and height object covers. Okay? So then, you also can put areas measured by counting how many squares of a particular size it would take to cover the shape. You don't have to put that, but the main one that I want to see on your sheet is the first bulleted point. The second bulleted point is not as necessary, but the first one is. The main thing you need to know, area is the amount of space that a two-dimensional width and height of an object covers. So again, this room would be two-dimensional. If we were talking about the flooring, we would talk about the width of the room and then the height of the room. And by multiplying this height and the width, we could tell the area. Now, if we don't have a tape measure, or we didn't know that, another way we could find the area of this room is to count the squares, right? Look at the tiles. You could go through and count all the tiles. Now, that would take a lot longer to do. So if I had to sit here and count all the tiles, walk up and down, that's going to take me a little bit of time and probably make me a little bit dizzy. It's going to be much quicker to find the area by just multiplying the width and the height. Okay? Give you guys a second to get that down. Mackenzie, I need you to set up. I need you to write this down, please. Bless you.
Oh my God.
Give you 10 more seconds. If you don't get it, I can come back to it at the end, or it'll be on Google Classroom too. The next part on our sheet says, what is a rectangle? What is a rectangle? What do you guys know about a rectangle? It's a shape. It has four sides. Anything else? Are all the sides the same length? No. Okay. Okay. So what is a rectangle? Whoop. So we decided that a rectangle has, I heard it's a shape. It has four sides. What'd you say?
A rectangle is a shape. That's it.
Okay, no, there's more to it. You guys are so close of the specific definition I'm looking for. So we'll start with this. A shape with four sides. Okay. So if you have a shape with four sides, excuse my drawing, you guys are going to find out real fast. I don't draw well. What do each of these sides have? What does this shape, they all have what? Think geometry. Okay. What are these things called in the corner?
Angles.
Yeah. So a shape with four sides and four angles.
You need one more to fill billiards.
Now, what kind of angles are these, though? All these angles are going to be, what'd you say? Right angles, good. What's the difference? What's a square? A square is an example, or a rectangle. A square can be considered a rectangle. But what makes a square specific? A square has to have certain.
Angles to it.
A square has all the
Sides.
same length on the sides. Okay. All right. Now, we talked about this in our opener again. The next part of our notes say, how do you find the area of a rectangle? So when we go into our notes, we're going to talk about how do you find the area of a rectangle. So one way that we can find the area of the rectangle is to simply count each square, or as you guys told me, is to multiply the height times the width. So we're going to talk about the formula. So the area formula is going to be A stands for area, because remember, every time we talk about formula, we always put the type of formula we're doing. So A equals height times width. So where it says the area formula, underneath that, you're going to put A equals height times width. So if I was asking you to find the area of this rectangle, what would you multiply together here? Okay, so you'd write it out like this.
You kind of got it all wrong.
So you'd write it out.
L
Hey,
times
this
W
is,
eight.
as I said, please don't start the calculator. I don't get new ones. And I also said at the beginning that we're going to use some different terminology from than what you guys are used to hearing. You're right. Usually we talked about area equals length times width, but for the sake of the lesson of what we're going to be moving into, we're going to talk about height times width. So if we're going to look and find the area of this rectangle here, how I'd like to see it on your paper, you're going to take area times height. Well, what's the height of my rectangle? 2. Height is how tall it is, right? So we're going to take 2, and then what's my width? Okay, which equals? So that's how you would write it out. That's how I'd like to see it. Yeah, that works right underneath it. Now, if you look at the first 3 examples, they look pretty basic, right? We have rectangles. I'm going to give you the height and the width of each of these rectangles, and we're going to determine what the area is. So we're on the front side of our notes still. We're going to look at the next 3 examples. So practice example number 1. What I'd like you to see, you do on your note sheet. You first need to label the height of your rectangle. What's the height of your rectangle? Okay. Then you're going to label the width of your rectangle. What's your width? 9. And then we're going to solve because we want to find out what the area of that rectangle is going to be. So the area of that rectangle is going to be area equals, what's my formula again?
72.
Height times width, which then equals, what's my height? What's my height? What's my width? And that equals 72. Yes. So it's a really good question. Do I have to really write all that? The only thing that I don't necessarily need to see written down is this. Everything else I need to see. So I need to see area equals height times width equals 72. So what I have underlined in the red, I don't have to see on my paper, but everything else I want to see. Now, the reason for, 1, I like to see how you get your answers. If you mess up, it's easier for me to see where you're messing up. But 2, remember I said we're going to start basic and we're going to build upon it. So we're starting basic here. The problems are going to get more complicated. So you're going to want to show your work. It will help you. Okay, again, as I said, we're starting basic, not so basic, right? Because we're in algebra. So when we're in algebra, we're going to deal with variables, okay? The whole part of algebra deals with variables as well. So, again, find the area of the rectangle. You're going to look and you're going to identify what is your height and what is your width. So I have area equals height times width. David, what's the height of this rectangle?
8.
Okay. Kaylon, what's the width?
It'll go with.
Yeah, it does.
You got X.
Okay. So my height is 8 times my width, which is X. Because you're multiplying, you can take 8 times X. What's 8 times X?
8X.
So what's the area of this rectangle? That's it.
What?
That's it. Now, it's not a number that we're used to seeing when we're talking about area. When we're talking about area, we're usually used to seeing just numbers. No variables in with it. Mackenzie, this is my second warning to catch up and stay caught up. Set up. Third warning, you're gonna lose your points for the day. All right, let's look at practice example number 3. So again, I'm going to write A for area equals, okay, what's my height? 3 what? Okay, so H times my width. What's my width? Okay, so when we take 3x times 4x, we're going to get 12. 12x what? How many x's do I have? Squared. Good. And box it. So it's going to be 12x squared. Okay? Because if I take 3x times 4x, you did a good job by taking your 3 times 4 to get 12. Now, remember, when you're dealing with variables and you multiply them, it's basically like adding the exponents. Well, it's x to the first plus x to the first, which would be x to the second, or x squared. Okay, so flip it over. Now, I understand on the back side, they gave you the numbers. I want you to go ahead and try examples 4 and 5. Do not start examples 6 and 7. So flip it over. Take a look at examples 4 and 5. You guys should be able to get those pretty fast.
Oh no.
So example number 4 says find the area of each rectangle. For the divided rectangles, find the area of X section, then add them together. We'll talk about that in a second. You do not have to write what I'm writing in the blue here. This is just a reminder for us, just a visual. Okay? So, what is my height for example number 4, Kelly? And then what's my width going to be? Okay, so Kelly, what's 4 times 9 then? So the area of this example number 4 is going to be 36. Okay? So then we're going to come to example number 5. Michael, what's the height for example number 5?
2x.
Okay? And then what's my width?
3.
So then what's the area going to be?
6x.
Perfect. Nice. Any questions on those two? Okay? So if I gave you a quiz on this, thumbs up if you'd ace it. Good. Good. Because you're going to have a quiz on this on Friday, right?
I'm not gonna be here Friday. That's my day off.
I'm really hopeful for this week. I really am. I'm hopeful. I'm going to be here every day this week. We're all going to be healthy. Okay. Now these are my favorite. Okay? Why do you think these types? Yeah, Mike knows. These are my favorite because we start to get into a little bit more challenging of problems. So, if you look at your directions, again, find the area of each rectangle. For the divided rectangles, find the area of each section. So you're going to have to look at each section of this model. So, now, what word did I just use for this? You're going to have to find the area of each section for this what? Model. You're going to hear that word a lot, this triad. Model, right, Jaden? Jaden's going to be our rectangle model. Okay, so if we're going to find it for each section, that means how many sections do I have here? 2. I have 2 sections. So I'm going to have to find the area of this first one, then this second one. Once I do that, if they're like terms, then I'm going to add them together. So we're going to find the area of this section first, okay? So in my little rectangle here, I'm going to put area equals, can you guys see that okay?
No.
So area equals, what's my height?
3. All of them.
Okay. So my height is 3 times, what's my width? 2x. Okay. So A equals 3 times 2x. What's that equal, you guys? 6x. Now, I'm showing my work in the box. It just makes it visually easier for me instead of doing each step. Okay? So then I'm going to look for my next section of the rectangle. So I'm going to
6 times 4 equals.
look and find the area of this section. So I'm going to have area equals, what's the height of this section? It is 3. So the height of this section of the shape is still 3. That 3 just comes here. So my height is still 3. But what's my width this time? 4. So what's 3 times 4? Okay. Now, I'm going to drop down below here and put area equals. So now I need to combine my like terms. I need to add each of my areas. Can I take 6x and add it to 12?
Yes.
Can I take 6x plus 12?
No, yes.
No, I can't. Why not?
It's a bigger number.
One has a variable, one doesn't, meaning they're not like terms.
Doesn't mean anything.
So if they're not like terms, that means I can't take 6x plus 12. So how I'm going to write the area for this rectangle is just 6x plus 12. That's going to be my final answer. So the area of this model is going to be A equals 6x plus 12. When I come to this next model, how many sections do I have? How many sections do I have? 4. So I'm going to have to find the area of each of these 4 sections. Okay? When I find an area of a model that has multiple sections, I always start top and I work my way. So I go top and then I go bottom. So I'm going to focus up here. Area. Oh, that's really bad to see. Let's see here. Let me change that color. Okay. So I'm going to do area equals, what's the height of this? 2 what? Okay, so we have the height is 2x. And then what's my width? 3x. Okay, what's 2x times 3x? There you go. Nice job.
Raise 2 is not.
So my height was 2, my width was 3.
How about the X too?
2x times 3x is 6x squared. Okay? Now, I'm going to come here. I'm going to find the area of this shape. So, first thing, what's my height? Good. My height is still 2x. It's still the height of this shape. What's my width? Okay, what's 7 times 2x? 14x. What's your question?
I said this is like the lightest multiplication.
Yes,
This
it
will be a
is.
long number. You have a long number for answering.
So now we're going to come down to my bottom row. What's the height for this shape?
It's fine.
5. What's my width? Good, so 5, my width is the 3x. I will tell you guys this. Right now, listening to you quickly give me these answers, you're already a step ahead most of my classes. A lot of my classes really struggle with transferring where to get the height and the width when the number's not right next to it. So,
Now you're going to have to do 5 times 7 equals 35 and box it.
okay,
Then you can move down to the bottom. So what you would do is you take 15x plus 14.
hold on, that's where we're going to stop. So, what we've done so far, we've found the area of each rectangle. Now I need to go through and I need to add them all together. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to visually write them all out. I will show you a shortcut. You won't have to write these all out in the future, but just for the sake of seeing it first, we're going to write them all out. So what was the first area I found?
6 squared 8.
Okay, 6x squared plus, what's my next one?
14
Then what?
15
Then what?
35.
Oh, you're gonna.
Okay? Now, remember, because I'm adding it together, that's where I got the addition signs for each, before each term. Now, when I go to add together, I can only add them together if they have
Pairs. So it's
Same.
pairs or same or like terms. So